Low trophy neighborhoods are ruining your life. You better start objecting cause you're running out of time. The realization is the right of their minds. Get rid of woke culture mantra. Get out and vote is the answer. If you were just a wee bit less of a skanker, more than half of the time.
We're standing outside the BBC at Langham Place. Now this is where they broadcast to the nation. In fact, they proudly emblazon the surroundabouts their building itself. But if you look behind me, there's a rather large covering. Now that was a statue that was carved by something like about 80 years ago now. But in recent times it's become something very, very unpleasant. Kate, it's pouring down with rain. You're not exactly in your teenage years, if I may be so respectful. Why are you here today?
Personally, because I have a non-compliant car and I live in the suburbs, and I have a choice between buying a new roof because it leaks or buying a new car.
Well, given the weather today, I think leaking roof's more important.
Leaking roof is more important.
Roof over your head.
After 55 years of driving, I will not be able to drive anymore. And in the suburbs, as many people know, there's not the transport is nowhere near as good as it is in central London.
Well, certainly the levels of traffic are far less in the suburbs.
Yes, far less.
So you're being placed and compromised into a position by the Mayor of London in basically have a vehicle or don't have a vehicle, and in your case, you've got other priorities.
Exactly. People that work all their lives, I'm not trying to make people feel sorry for me. I've worked all my life from age 15 to age 70 to save up a few pennies for things like a new roof or whatever for my home. But now, cost of living, etc., I can't afford both a new roof and a new car. But that's me personally. I feel more sorry for the thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are going to be affected by this. Nurses doing overnight shifts, double bubble.
And they are the people that care for people.
Exactly. Not only nurses, but carers.
Right. So you do recognise, therefore, that there's going to be a huge change.
Huge. And I think this is my own personal feeling, that I think if it goes through, if the government or the powers that be are going to get the shock of their lives, because people will lose their businesses, people will not be able to get to work because they can't afford to buy a new car. They'll all be signing on, or whatever you call it these days, and they'll be drawing benefits. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people will be drawing benefits.
In a very difficult and precarious, oppressed position. What sort of message would you like to give to the public nation broadcaster, the BBC, which is where we're standing outside of right now? What sort of message would you like to give to them as a public broadcasting service? Do you feel your voice is getting heard as far as you'd like it to?
The practical blackout on the media is not allowing this to get through to people. People don't understand. We come up here and they say, what's it all about? Us from the suburbs, what's it all about? I don't understand. And the only thing that gets through to them is I quote the thing about the nurses doing shift overnight, 25 quid.
Right. So presumably you're taking direct action. I mean, it's a cold, wet, windy day. It's not easy to get about these days, and yet you're here. So what sort of message would you like to drive to other people watching this who feel that they could do something? What would you suggest they do?
I suggest they help us and they lobby and they sign petitions. We don't want any vandalism, we don't want any looting. We're not like some of the other groups, I better not name them, who just cause pandemonium, do damage to public property, etc., etc. We don't do any of that. We hold the traffic up a little bit, but then we let them go. Maybe we're too reasonable. I don't know. But my own son says to me, "Mum, I'm worried, don't go up to London, you know, you're going to get arrested." And I went, "What are they going to do to me?"
Is it a worthwhile cause if they did stretch the law so much that as innocent a move as just simply saying, "I don't want this, I want to speak out against it," if they arrested you for something as simple as that, would you still stand?
I'd get arrested.
What can I say? Look, thanks for sharing your views with us today. I'm sure they're the views of many people across the nation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can someone find out where the clear plastic bags are?
What can I say? You appear to have a coffin with you. Now, I know that's got some history. First of all, I'm curious, historically, where did that come from?
It came from a protest previously that someone abandoned, and I saw it said democracy on the side of it, and I picked it up. So I've kept hold of it ever since. I've had it for quite a long time.
How prescient, abandoned democracy. Is this something like a little bit of what we're getting at the moment?
Well, the coffin represents two things. So first of all, it represents consultation that was ignored. So obviously Sadiq Khan had a consultation on ULEZ, totally ignored the findings, and in fact tweaked the findings to suit his narrative, reduced it from 80% by discounting certain votes, and said, oh, it's now 60% against. But initially he didn't even want to publish it at all. He said, oh, we're not going to publish the results, but we're still going to do the ULEZ expansion. It was leaked to the press, and then he couldn't deny it. So that's what happened with the consultation. But then on democracy would say that he should have put the low emission expansion, ultra low emission expansion in his manifesto, which he failed to do. At the time he was quizzed on it and he said, I have no intention of expanding the ultra low emission zone. But no intention is very different from no. It's something, well, at the time I had no intention. I'm calling him a liar because he absolutely had every intention of doing it. We had the consultation and he'd already bought the cameras before the consultation went out. So he knew what he was doing, and he's in a position now, even now he says, oh, I've got no plan B if he fails the judicial review. That means he's got to make the money from ULEZ regardless. So he's stuck himself in a terrible situation. I think he has to resign if this judicial review says that he's acted illegally. Not just scrap ULEZ, he needs to resign. He's gone too far. And on the democracy thing, the other problem with democracy is we have this first past the post system, which allows a minority to be elected. I think he got elected with 35% of the vote, which, you know, is bonkers. You know, at least if an alternative vote system or proportional representation, it would have been a different situation.
Yeah. So one of the other things we've noticed very, very recently, Sir Keir Starmer's been quite vocal and asking him to reconsider such matters, hasn't he?
He's trying to sit on the fence with this because he knows that he's really messed up trying not to swear there. So obviously I stood in Uxbridge and South Ruislip as a not just an anti-ULEZ platform. Obviously I've started the organisation Stop the ULEZ and Action Against Unfair ULEZ, which has now got nearly 46,000 members. But I don't have the blue badge and I don't have a red badge, and people do often go pick red or blue. So I'm still very pleased that Steve Tuckwell got elected. I spoke to him, he's a very nice bloke and he's very firm on ULEZ. Uxbridge was really a ULEZ referendum, without doubt. As I say, 94% of the vote was to an anti-ULEZ candidate. But yeah, so Sir Keir Starmer's looking at it and realised that he's going to mess up in London. He's doing well in other parts of the country because of the cost of living crisis. And I think that's what he's hoping on, relying on. You know, cost of living crisis is going to help him at the May elections next year. But in London, I think he realises he's screwed up. So he's trying to sit on the fence by saying, oh, well, you know, maybe you should reconsider it. What he should be saying is, Sadiq Khan, you've lied to the public, you're a thief, a legal thief because you're using the law to steal from people. You need to resign and you're dishonest. But he hasn't got the balls to do that, and that's why I think Labour is screwed, really. There is no Labour anymore. It's not for the poor people, it's not for the working class people, it's for the rich elites who've got vested interests. I mean, Sadiq Khan's getting 250 grand a year as the chair of C40 Cities. What's all that about? We didn't elect him as the C40 Cities chair. He's supposed to be the mayor of London. He's supposed to put Londoners first, not his vested interests and cash in his back pocket. Sorry.
No, not at all. I mean, very, very eloquently, full of the facts and figures, and that should be enough to convince most people something is wrong with the policies that Sadiq Khan's been rolling out. Certainly of the fact that he's actually hidden matters, that he's actually purchased equipment even before they're going to vote. So these are very worrying facts for the public to consider.
Oh, absolutely, and it just shows that he's totally dishonest. He doesn't have a care in the world about the people. And the thing is, what's also wrong is, other candidates who've spoken to him, also other members of the GLA who've spoken to him in meetings, he shuts them down immediately, won't let them speak. And there's this narrative that if you don't like ULEZ, you're against clean air. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that if you move a car from a city where it's used twice a week for the weekly shop, and move it to the countryside, it's going to do more miles. Now I can explain that. If you have a car in a city, the shops are nearby, your schools are nearby, hospitals are nearby, you've got a night bus service, you've got an almost 24-hour underground service in some places, and indeed sometimes you have got a 24-hour underground service. In the countryside, the buses finish at 6 o'clock in the evening, if you're lucky, if you've even got a bus service. The train stations are miles away. And the counter-argument to that is the scrappage scheme. Well, the scrappage scheme is so minimal, it's like a grain of sand in a bucket. It's flawed anyway. So £2 for a car that's worth 10 grand. You're not going to sell your car for £2 to the scrap man. You're going to sell it to someone in the countryside for its true value. And even if you don't, if you're on job seekers allowance, at the very bottom of your the claim for scrappage, it says TfL is not responsible for the loss of benefits by claiming this money. Do you still wish to proceed? So someone on job seekers allowance is going to go, oh no, I don't want to have £2 in my bank account because I'm going to lose my benefits.
Right.
So they're going to then sell their car. So the car's still on the road. But it gets worse than that. The city owner who had a car that he sold to the countryside is now going to buy a brand new car. So now there's 2 cars on the road instead of 1. And if it's an electric car, my goodness, well, you're going to have to get 77,000 miles before it even sees any net benefits.
One second.
Okay, so electric cars are never going to get to 77,000 miles because after 10 years the batteries are knackered and you've got to replace the batteries at a huge cost. So, and electric cars don't have the range that petrol and diesel cars have, so they're not going to do high mileage. So it's absolute nonsense. It's complete virtue signalling, and people have got to realise that there's, look at the facts. It's not about I'm against clean air. I'm against nonsense and lies, and this is nonsense and lies. We're missing an opportunity here. We could be using biodiesels, we could be using more ethanol-based fuel, so we've already got E10. We had E5 before, so that's 10% ethanol in your petrol. Yeah, hydrogen, of course, yeah, but of course, if they're trying to scrap internal combustion engines, the research isn't going to be done. They're using internal combustion engines to develop what's coming next. And that's fine, but if you're saying after 2030, well, you can't have an internal combustion engine, you've got to be electric, the researchers are going to go, well, we're not going to spend our money on it, so...
And that's the future.
Yeah. Unless they get rid of the 2030 internal combustion engines scrappage, they develop biofuels such as ethanol and rapeseed oil. I mean, a diesel engine can run on rapeseed oil, that's vegetable oil to you and I, but if you haven't got a diesel engine, you can't do that. I've run my vehicles on vegetable oil. It's fantastic. It's cheap and it's environmentally friendly, but you can only do it on non-compliant cars, unfortunately, because of the technology.
Well, the inventor of the diesel engine, Rudolf Diesel, actually did intend it that way in the first place, didn't
Absolutely, yeah. And the thing is, it's only minor tweaks that need to be done to an engine for it to run on vegetable oil. And the thing is, we're missing an opportunity in economic sense as well, because farmers are getting paid an absolute pittance for dairy milk and dairy. They could be growing rapeseed oil. Now, rapeseed oil is very profitable, and we've got the right climate to grow rapeseed oil. Spain's got the right climate to grow oranges. We've got the right climate to grow rapeseed oil. And instead of doing dairy, for example, which is not very profitable, and people are saying that it's causing a lot of methane problems, let the farmers, but they're only going to sell rapeseed oil if people are going to buy it. We could produce huge quantities of rapeseed oil and biodiesel for the rest of the world, but we're missing the opportunity because we're so incensed on getting these electric cars.
What can I say? Missed opportunities that are there clearly for the taking. Is it political? It certainly is. Thanks for joining us.
100%, thank you.
Yeah, we've got a collection of monsters here. We've got yeah, we've got our good old friend Gary Clitter. We got Trainee Travis, who can we get him? Yeah, do you know what it is yet? He clearly did.
You were a candidate at the recent Uxbridge by-election. First of all, how did that go in general?
Well, we got the result we needed. Unfortunately, the result we needed ended up with the Tory council, but that was what we needed.
So you got a bit of a change?
Well, no, we had Tory anyway, but we had to make sure that Labour didn't get in, because we were trying to send the message to the Labour Party that they're going to potentially lose to London boroughs if they don't drop ULEZ, or if they don't, completely change it. So that was the whole point. Well, I stood, Kingsley stood as well. I stood because I'm from Uxbridge. Corbyn stood as well, Piers Corbyn, and the Labour Party lost, but they got a 6,500 swing from last time. They lost by 495 votes.
Wow.
That's how close it was.
So you hurt them?
My votes and Kingsley's votes and Piers Corbyn's votes summed to 495 on the nose.
Wow.
So I'm telling you, we made a difference.
So politics does make a difference if you get in the local level.
You've got to get the right. Look, I'm a local guy. It's not just ULEZ is what got me activated, but there's other things on my manifesto. But you know, I was never going to win it. I understand that. I only campaigned for 3 weeks, and I got myself 186 votes.
That's not too bad.
Which isn't too bad. Obviously, Kingsley's got a nice following, and he got himself 208 votes, and then Piers Corbyn got 101. So that's something to 495.
Have you got a bit of a taste now for the political side that you can make a little bit of a change?
Well, do you know what? I'm enjoying myself. I've enjoyed it. It's been a good 2 weeks. A good 3 weeks.
It's very wet here, but I think everyone's enjoying themselves because they know that they're probably making a difference here.
Well, I went into Uxbridge the morning after the election with my wife. We were just sitting at the coffee shop. There was some media there. BBC were there. I introduced myself, spoke to him. I said, "Do you want a few words?" And he said, "No." I said, "Well, even though it's all over now, all over the BBC, all over ITV, about ULEZ being the main reason why Labour lost that seat, and yet he still wouldn't take my words."
So you've heard, Daya, you've got it from the horse's mouth. The BBC didn't want to know anything about the reasons as to why that election went the way that it actually did.
I don't want to be recorded.
Look, this is brilliant. Look, no ULEZ Leo here, with the BBC London presenter, still, after the result last night, still refusing to record me and take an independent anti-ULEZ sentiment. Still refusing, still being quashed. This is marvellous. This is democracy at its best, isn't it? Well done, BBC. No ULEZ Leo. Yeah.
Let's say, look, thanks for taking some time with us. We'll catch up with you again another day.
Yeah, no worries.
And we'll go a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole
no
with you.
ULEZ Leo.
There
That's
you go.
me.
No ULEZ Leo. Good afternoon, sir. Okay, stop ULEZ, sack Khan. Very clear message. How far have you travelled today, sir?
From Dartford.
Now, why have you come from Dartford?
Because I think it's totally unfair. I've got a non-compliant vehicle, so it costs me money to get from work every day. It's actually worth going to work in the first place.
What's going to happen to you now financially if this comes in and is permanent?
Well, it's going to cost me about £450 a month to actually drive to and from work every day, and it's kind of unviable, really.
Are you going to go short on things because of this?
I probably will do, yes.
Now, how about yourself? You've come from Dartford as well, haven't you? How's it going to affect you?
Well, I think life, down to meet people, friends.
Same problem.
Yeah.
So you're basically going to stand to make a big loss of money simply because Mr. Khan wants to do it.
Exactly.
Friends,
Right.
friends won't be able to go and see relatives because they've got to pay.
Very lad, they're very popular. Obviously, a lot of people are supporting this around us. So, do you think people will take up tooting their horns as a way of showing solidarity all the time?
I believe so, yes. Definitely.
Yeah. Are you going to be attending more marches like this? I mean, it's pouring down today, and it's incredible to see people coming out in this kind of weather, in these
quite
numbers.
a few marches so far. This is about 8th or 9th March so far. And we keep on going until we either win or Khan resigns, whichever happens.
So you're looking forward to Khan giving in the notice?
I'd like to. I mean, let's be honest, what's he done for London? Crime rate's gone up, he's closed down police stations, he's done actually nothing for London really, other than create problems.
So your message to Mr. Khan, if you can give him a direct message, as politely as you possibly can, or however you feel.
I think he should resign. I mean, look at the police force. He's destroyed the police force. When they listened to Chris Dick resigning, I always thought the batch was top at the top. He's right at the top, therefore he should resign. He's in charge, therefore he should take the full responsibility.
Yeah, it's what they've done before. They've stood down, so you're hoping that he'll stand down. What can I say? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Terrible weather, but a very good cause. I'm absolutely certain. Thank you. How far have you come today?
Hillingdon. I'm actually in Hillingdon.
Well, it's a little bit of a journey considering the weather. How many of these protests have you been to?
All of them.
All of them, every single one of them. Now,
Yeah,
what's motivating you?
Well, actually, I drive an electric car, so I don't have to worry about it. But I just hate the way the politicians use the green issue to just earn money. That's what this is. ULEZ.
So it's all about the money?
It is, yes. With ULEZ, it's clear cut, and it's a ridiculous amount of money to pay. And usually taxes are levied towards people who are rich, but this one is people who are less well off.
A bit like a poll tax?
Poll tax was never £4.5 grand a year.
Well, yes, I'm talking about in principle. I mean, it affected everybody. I mean, I think even if you don't own a vehicle, that this ULEZ will affect you because if you
indirectly it will, yes.
Of course,
I
yes.
mean, you can have your gardener coming with a van. You know, we can have someone who works as a builder. It'll kill them all. You know, really.
So basically, everyone's going to be paying for this.
That's right.
In more than one way.
And it's unfairly. I mean, you can have a tax. I mean, if it's reasonable, if they want it like a couple £100 a year, fair enough. But £4,000 a year, it's just ridiculous.
Sir Keir Starmer's waded in recently in the last few days. He seems to be a little bit unhappy about how it's going. He's worried about the Labour stronghold. What sort of message would you give to Sir Keir Starmer in order to make him see reason?
Basically, you know, it is an anti-motorist policies, as if they don't exist. Everything is against the motorist. That's what.
So would you say it's fair to say that Sir Keir Starmer, if he supports or doesn't take action as the Labour leader, he's actually encouraging this if he doesn't do anything about it?
Well, if he doesn't do something about the anti-motorist policies, eventually there'll be a problem. You know, they will lose votes.
Sir Keir Starmer, if you're listening or looking in at this, or anyone else connected to you, you want to have a really good think about people here who are solidly supporting these protests. Stanley, you as a politician, have a little think about that.
Well, honestly, if you want to win in this election, you have to look after the motorists as well as the cyclist. You know, it's biased towards non-motorists, and you've got to change some policies.
Well, I'm going to say thank you very much for sharing your views today. Appreciate it.
Okay.
I'm only going to talk to Susan here. I'm quite happy to give her the deputy mayor position.
Look, Mark, usually we see you up in Islington, Hackney, down in Wood Green, but now you're right on the doorstep of the BBC, and right behind us is a covered-up sculpture.
Oh, that's Jimmy Savile, ain't it?
Is it?
Oh, didn't you know? Listen, they've covered that up the way they're covering this up. You ain't getting no exposure from the BBC. But the reason I'm down here is because, all right, I'm normally down in Islington and all the other places, is because what they've done it in stages, where they've brought in all the LTNs and the cameras. We know Calm give them £1.2 million. We got that via Freedom of Information Act back in end of January last year. So what it is, you do it in stages. He's got all the cameras in situ, all the roads which have got the red lines, they're all TfL roads. He's expanding the ULEZ, join up the dots, all the cameras are going on, just change the software, and it's going to be pay per mile, road charging, whatever you want to call it, it's the same meat, different gravy, all over London. So it'll cost you whatever it is to go from A to B. And I know it's happening because my mate's nephew's been working on a pricing strategy for it. They told him that over West Ham towards the end of the season. So it's quite ironic, really. They've covered up Jimmy Savile, the way they've covered this up. We don't get no exposure. Maybe they're waiting for another nonsense case to appear.
Maybe they are. Do you think they'll take any notice, or do you think they'll turn a blind eye to this?
No, they're in Calm's back pocket. Of course they are. They're all out the same mould. And whenever there has been anything on the telly about ULEZ, whether it's about the recent elections in Uxbridge or whatever, it's always portrayed in a negative way. It's never give a positive side to it. I suppose the BBC thinks the sun shines out of Calm's derriere.
Yeah. Well, there's another question I'd like to ask you, Mark. Today it's pouring down with rain. There's a lot of elderly people, there are disabled people out here. There's actually several hundred people here, which our camera will pan around and show viewers as we present this later. But the truth of the matter is, even though it's soaking wet, despite their impediments, there's a lot of people here. Do you need more people?
Well, of course, providing we get the exposure, but you brought up a good thing there. Elderly people, disabled and everything, because these are the ones who are going to suffer. You've got too many people sitting indoors on their backsides watching EastEnders or whatever it is, rather than come out and do something about it. Spoke to my mate's wife over there. They've just put a barrier down in a road in Islington. The neighbour's going alarming. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? She said, well, I've been going on the demos. Where have you been? People have to get off their heiresses and do something about it. All right, quiet talking. It's no good moaning about it after the event. It's too late. You've got to stop it before it happens.
If people are going to sit on the derrieres because they have no choice, some people are unfortunately, what would you suggest they do? How could they be active in this?
Email your MP. Thank you. Enough emails. It's going to get. They can't ignore it. Listen, freedom of information, when you get on the council's back, they hate that because they have to tell you the truth, which is how we found out about the 1.2 million Khan give Islington. And also how we found out about Khan financing the Stoke Newington Church Street closure, which when I was at one of these talk things back in November in Hawke Hill in Woodford, I presented all this evidence to him, and the first words out of his mouth was, well, all this is funded by the government. He lied in front of about 300 people.
So this is a bit of a hobby then of his, is it? He lies? I see a lot of signs around here and people are really, really discontented. What's the best thing people can do if they want to get rid of him?
Well, first of all, we're so crooked he couldn't lie straight in bed. Get rid of him, you've got to vote him out because, listen, he weren't daft when he ordered that £350,000 bulletproof Range Rover, was he? He knew it was coming. Before that, you had Ken travel on the tube, he was in the same carriage as him once. Boris was always seen around the Angel on his bike ran up the street. That was a bat, but he from the very beginning has got this bulletproof thing. He knew what he was doing of. So,
well, Mark, I can see there's a big demand for a big crowd over there, and I think you're going to join them, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Piers, what can I say? Once again, you're a stalwart of all of these marches.
Well, I'm here on this anti-ULEZ protest, and as you know, I stood in the Uxbridge and South Ruislip by-election, where the combined votes of the explicit anti-ULEZ candidates was 495, and a lot of people were persuaded by our arguments to not vote for Labour because Labour are the main ones putting this forward right now, and that I think deprived Labour of its hope for victory, which I have to say I'm pleased about. Whoever won instead, that's actually irrelevant. The important thing was to stop Sadiq Khan's machine, and there's no debates in both Labour and Tory about what they're going to do. So our advice to people is now is the time like no other to drive in the existing congestion, existing ultra-low emission zone and do not pay, and support all those campaigns to take down the cameras. So we say drive at will, do not pay, take down the cameras, and we can break ULEZ, break Sadiq Khan, and this will be a tremendous blow against New World tyranny. So now's the time, please. Drive and do not pay.
Loads of your neighbourhoods are ruining your life. You better start objecting cause you're running out of time. The realisation is the right of their minds. Get rid of whole culture mantra. Get out and vote as the answer. If you were just a wee bit less of a skanker, more than half of the time.